so I originally came here just for study. Just to sign up for uni, took a major in entrepreneurship, which is kind of ironic. Didn't even realize you could get a degree in entrepreneurship, and you kind of don't really need one. But for me, I think coming from a small town, it definitely helped a lot. Just to sort of get down here and network and meet some interesting people, and all turned out pretty well.
Yeah, because you didn't actually start out in entrepreneurship, did you? You actually worked as something else altogether.
Yeah, originally started off with my hands on the tools as a mechanic. So mechanic, then mechanical engineer. So working with big heavy machinery and doing all sorts of crazy stuff like that. But when I was 18, I think I mentioned that my old man passed away, and I was working with him at the family business, and just sort of meant that I had to suddenly change industries. Entrepreneurship always interested me, and it sort of came down to a couple of different industries. I came up with my criteria list of types of businesses that I could start, and it was either going to be for me, it had to be something that was scalable, repeatable, something where ideally I could build it to a point and step away a little bit. And two of the businesses that seemed to tick all of those boxes was firstly marketing agency, which is where I ended up, and secondly a storage facility. And storage didn't really seem like a very interesting industry. So here we are.
Has entrepreneurship always been in your bones? Has it been something that you've always sort of been quite interested in?
Yeah, definitely. It was always quite entrepreneurial. Both my parents were quite entrepreneurial. Both ran small businesses themselves and things like that. So always sort of planted the seed and taught me how to think that way and look for opportunities. And I remember when I was 12 years old, 12, maybe 13, went on Trade Me, and I saw this locksmith that was going into liquidation selling a giant box of the little peepholes in the door.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if I told you this one before, but there was 300 of them for sale. I was like, oh, look at that, there's a business here. I think I got the whole box for $80. And then I just went around knocking door to door with this kid with a drill and a big box of these viewers. And I don't know how the heck people let me drill a hole in their front door of their house. I was literally 12 years old on my bike. But I was charging, I think it was $60 or $80 a pop, and got quite a few in there. Took my mate along a year or so. It was good. It was that one, and heaps of random other little ventures throughout the years and things. Always loved business, loved industry, and I think it was always going to be my path. I was always headed that way. It just sort of took a while for me to find that path. We're here now, and it seems to be going all right.
Yeah. One thing that's really interesting, and one of the core reasons why I wanted to get you on the show, is because you were a solo dad for a while. You had a kid at a very young age, and it obviously would have changed your life trajectory quite a bit. But despite all of that, you still pushed through, and you established that you wanted to, go to university. You established that you wanted to run your own business. How did you prioritize parenting and also prioritize study and also work as well? Because you studied full-time, worked full-time, and obviously you're sort of dad 24/7 as well.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I think for me anyway, it was the wake up that I needed at the time. Becoming a parent young definitely grows you up fast, which it can be a really good thing if you see it that way. I think a lot of people they have a situation like that arise, or any situation that can be perceived as being challenging, and they'll go one of two ways. Option A, they're going to use it to justify bad decisions, or option B, they're going to take the hand that they've been dealt and think, all right, what's the best game that I can play with this? There's nothing I can do about it, but how am I going to turn it into something really, really positive? Which for me, it was exactly that. It grew me up fast. started looking at my life as more of a long-term thing instead of thinking about what am I going to do today or this weekend. It was like, all right, what am I going to do for the next decade? Where do I want to be in 5 years? You start thinking a lot more long-term, which has been a really positive thing. And Tay's 12 now. I just turned 30. She's amazing. She's a really smart kid. She's super entrepreneurial as well. I think when you're that age, though, you just sort of you can be thinking about all the potential bad things that might happen, or it's like, what am I going to do? I think it's just the big foggy lack of clarity that scares you the most. I've found that so long as you have a really clear plan, or just take some time and think of where you want to be, and then make the plan, and then stick to the plan, then everything's going to be all right.
It's so interesting that you mention the growing up part of becoming a parent, because so many people and so many parents especially almost think that there's a requirement to put all of their dreams on the back burner in order to prioritize your kid. And in some ways that is true, but there's the old saying that I've picked up from some friends of mine who run multiple businesses down in Taupo, who say that you sacrifice one dream for an even bigger dream. And in many ways, that's the case for, being a parent as well. Like, you can still go and prioritize and fit all those things in. And one of the things that we spoke about previously was, really wanting something enough and only needing to sleep for a certain period of time to make that sacrifice. I think it was Arnold Schwarzenegger who said, you only need 6 hours of sleep, and if you say that you need 7, well, sleep a bit harder and sleep a bit faster. Because with your journey, obviously, full-time work, full-time parenting, and at one stage you had a stint at was it Brand Developers? Yeah. Whereabouts were you at that stage, and how did you prioritize all of the dreams and the goals that you had for where you wanted to go?
Yeah. So with the stint at Brand Developers, I suppose firstly for context, before starting the agency at Flow, just did the uni thing for a wee while there, and then just broke away and worked at a whole bunch of different marketing related roles. I think the first one was kind of Brand Developers. They do TV ads, they run infomercials and things. And while I had a very small input on the actual creation of some of the ads myself, it was mainly a sales role. But at the same time, it was my way into the industry. After that, went into radio, so I was doing news writing and had a little bit of input on the ads. Did a stint in print as well, Fairfax Media, which was pretty cool. It was 2IC there for a little while. It was really interesting. And then got into digital back in 2016, it was 2014, 2015, I think, doing Facebook ads and touching on Google and a bit of content creation and bits and pieces. But ultimately, when I felt comfortable and saw a big enough gap in the market, when I started Flow. And fast forward a couple of years, we've got a fantastic team, beautiful office here in Takapuna, and things are tracking pretty smoothly. Just really, really passionate about doing really bloody good work and helping our clients to succeed. But at the same time, just making sure that we've got a really happy team that doesn't hate their job. Keep the clients happy, keep the team happy, keep the results flowing in, and then we're all doing good. Circling back though to your question, Brand Developers was freaking awful. Straight up, didn't enjoy that at all. When I was studying, Tay was like really young. I also had full custody of my younger sister at the time, which was really challenging. So it was like 2 children, one a lot smaller than the other. But the hours that I was working was 6 p.m. until I think 2 or 3 in the morning was the night shift. And when I first started the role, I was like, oh, this is going to be fantastic. I can work all night and then just study all day, or start other businesses in the daytime to complement my studies. Which when you're first thinking about it, seems like a wonderful, logical idea, but then you don't realize that when it gets to 3 a.m. and you've been working in fluorescent lights for 6 hours, 8 hours, last thing you want to do is go straight home and sleep. You're wired, you've been doing sales calls, and it's like a real fast-paced sales environment. So, it was a really crazy time in my life. I was not getting to bed until like 9 or 10 a.m., sleeping for a few hours, waking up, doing some studies, doing the school run, uh, and then going back to work again. It was freaking awful. But it's really good knowing what you don't want to do too, because whenever I'm lacking motivation these days, I can just mentally take myself back to some of these really challenging times throughout my life. That one, some other ones. And it just helps you to keep the wheels turning and moving forward, if that makes sense.
Yeah. How exactly do you balance a day out? Like, if you are setting up your schedule for like a day, week, month, how what's the process that you follow to make sure that you're not neglecting, like, being a dad, and not neglecting your company to the point where it's there are sort of fires arising?
Yeah, man, really good question. Myself personally, I'm ridiculously goal oriented, and yeah, I document everything. I've got a very strict routine that I follow every day. I think if I didn't, then the wheels would fall off, or I'd just be a lot less productive. So it's works for me. Wouldn't work for everyone. Drives my partner crazy, um, but like I say, it works for me. Every single day, I'll wake up and go through my goals list, which is a bit of a novel. It takes me like 10 minutes just to go through my goals list every single day. I'm pretty big on affirmations as well. They sit separate to my goals list. They're very clear with regards to who I want to be today, and also who I want to be in the near future. So it's like I think it's quite important to remind yourself um, who your ideal self is, just so that whenever you pick yourself up deviating from that, then you can catch yourself and bring it back really fast. For me, it's just things like making sure that I remain very driven and motivated and focused, and that I've got a very clear balance between my work life and my family life. Because I mean, a lot of entrepreneurs, I think they're out there will they'll struggle with that. You know, their work commitments often can take priority over their family commitments, which I think is just not the way to do things. They need to have a pretty even split. It doesn't have to be a time even split. You know, obviously most people are going to spend more time at work than they do with their family. Unfortunately, it's just how the system's set up. But I think so long as you're spending a good, 2-3 hours in the evening, with your family, minimum. Ideally more than that, but just so long as you're making that commitment, making that effort, then yeah, really, really important. So I think to answer your question, in order to maintain that balance, for me, is just being really clear on what my goals are, being really clear on what my routine is, and also just knowing when to switch off. Really important. Um, Although I say that lately, I've been a little bit bad. Go to sleep, happy days. I've spent a few hours with them, quality time. We get to bloody 10:30 p.m. and I'll wake up and do a few extra hours into the evening. For me, though, I just work better at nighttime. Less distractions. A lot of the people I talk to that are quite motivated and goal orientated are quite similar. You know, they work better when there's no distractions, and in the evening when the phone isn't ringing and you're not getting 1,000 emails a day and notifications and stuff. Yeah.
It's the same thing as well with early in the morning. Like, you hear about a lot of these Fortune 500 entrepreneurs that are getting up at 3, 4 o'clock in the morning, mowing through all the emails, making sure that they've got all the checklists done, prepared for the meetings, and that by the time they actually walk into the office and start the day, they know exactly what they want to achieve, and there's no fluff. There's no wasted time. And I was talking to Phil Baldy, who's a business and sales coach, recently, and he was saying that his structure for organizing his day is into 15-minute pieces, which seems quite extreme, but when you actually break it down and look at it, there's so much wasted time that happens in a typical workday, even with a lot of people that would consider themselves very productive. If you were to ask them to document and log minute by minute what they're doing, you'd probably find there's about 3 or 4 hours of wasted time in each week. And for parents, that's obviously something that's really crucial to helping them build and achieve their own goals, isn't it? Is making sure that you're shifting things around enough for that time to be available for you to go and work on your dreams. And it doesn't have to be something like building a business. It could be something like writing a book or running a marathon or spending spending more time, connecting with your wider family or whatever it might be. And you've obviously managed to find that right harmony, I would say, with doing all of those things. Is that a process that took a while for you, or was it something that you kind of just have sort of figured out as you've gone along?
Yeah, definitely. Definitely figured out as I gone along, but throughout the last few years, it's taken shape quite well. Um, and I think just scheduling in the important parts, even if it's, I mean, people have a habit of only booking in to their calendar if it's a meeting and involves other people. But I think something that can work quite well is just booking it in like an hour slot, just to, if it's for writing that book, or if it's uh, like doing something around the house that really needs to be done, just like book a time slot for it if you're a busy person, because otherwise it probably just won't get done. It falls to the bottom of the priority list. So I think a lot of people out there are kind of similar to me, where just Google Calendar rules their life. But I know if it goes on my Google Calendar, it's gonna happen. Like it will. So yeah, it kind of helps if you uh, take the yeah take take it out of your control. If you need the self control to be able to do it at that time, just book it in the calendar, and it's probably much more likely to happen. Yeah.
What are some of the big reasons you find parents don't start their own businesses and take that risk? Like, what are the common things that you hear from other parents?
Yeah, like it. I mean, that's the big word right there that you said, isn't it? Risk. It is a lot more risky breaking away on your own, especially because I mean, most people by the time they have children, they've got a mortgage, they've got big expenses. I was kind of lucky in the sense that when, uh, yeah, I had a kid when I was young, so I didn't really have massive expenses at the time. I was still young enough where it wasn't weird that I was flatting. So my expenses were really low. I guess that would be a big reason for a lot of people. So I guess, I mean, the sooner you can make that leap, the better. But even if that's not the case, I think the answer would just be to bring those expenses down, minimize the amount of risk that you need to take. Or the best one that I've seen people do is just start the business before you quit your job, get it up to a certain level of revenue. These days, you don't need to be operating business within work hours. One good hack is just to look at time zones that work for you, and maybe if the business that you want to start is one that can be done remotely. If you look at a map of the world, it's basically like a big strip above New Zealand. Pretty much anyone in that zone you can do business with. Like all of Southeast Asia, Japan, Hawaii is only 3 hours off us. And then also, not many people know, but like San Francisco, there's only a 3-4 hour time difference between here and San Fran. I think it was San Fran, one of these states in America.
Yeah, it's California, like 4 or 5 hours ahead, depending
But
on
it's the day
daylight
prior.
savings time.
But it's the day prior. It's like 3 hours off, but it's the day prior, which is a huge opportunity for a lot of people, especially like information workers, people that work on the computer all day long. A lot of opportunities there. I saw a really interesting story recently. I don't know if you follow the mustachian movement. That's the thing. Like a lot of people are chasing financial freedom. My perspective on financial freedom is changing quite a bit lately. I think personally, anyway, you see all these Instagram stories and these influencers, these business influencers saying like, if you don't have a business started by the time you're 22, you're a failure, which is completely incorrect. There's nothing wrong with working hard for your money. I think being actively involved in a business, like previously when I started Flow, like I said, I wanted to start a company that eventually I could step away from. But these days I'm really like realizing that if you love what you do, I mean, what's wrong with staying involved with it for a very long period of time? I think the internet makes us feel as though that if you're involved in your business, then it's a bad thing. But I disagree. I think it's good just having that personal interaction with your clients and your staff and everything. Everyone's got different objectives and stuff like that. But yeah, I think it's that whole cash flow quadrant thing, isn't it? You make your money you start off as an employee, you make your money in business, and then you put it into assets, and then your assets work for you. And then eventually long term, then you're working because you want to, not because you have to, which is a much better situation. But what I was going to say is I saw a guy mention in that Mustachians group. He actually worked 2 full-time jobs. He worked a full-time job in the day, and then he found a person in America that would hire him full-time in the evening. Took 2 full-time roles. Each role required him to work at least 30 hours a week, but ideally 40. But yeah, he had some sort of arrangement where he could do 30 for each. And they were quite high-paying roles as well. They were I think they were both 6-figure roles. The second job in the States was quite deep into 6 figures, which for him would be a really good leverage platform to then break away on his own and not worry so much about expenses, because you'd have a bit of a buffer to keep you going for a wee while, Or he could do it for a few years and chuck it straight into assets, and then take your sweet time to start your business if you're fully financially free,
When you started Flow, were you still working full-time somewhere, or had you broken away completely and gone out on your own?
No, yeah. So I broke away completely before I started the company.
What year was that?
It must have been late 2015 or early 2016. But yeah, how it happened is it was my birthday, and a good friend of mine, well, he wasn't a good friend at the time, but lived on my street. We were both in our early 20s. He came over on my birthday, bought me a box of beers with his last $20. And I thought that was quite a nice gesture. I was like, wow, what a kind thing to do. We got talking. He had a similar idea. He wanted to start an agency. His was going to be a little bit different to mine, but relatively similar. I had the same sort of idea, and I just told him, as opposed to going into competition with each other, why don't we just collaborate and start it together? He was quite well connected, him and his family. And I think I just had that hustle, and I was keen to just work my ass off, basically. And yeah. So just for the next, I think, year and a half after that, we just went out and got loads of clients and things. Eventually ended up buying him out of the company. He's off running his own separate type of business now. We both took really good paths and both really good mates and things. But
what were some of the initial challenges that you faced, and are you glad that you went through those challenges and you faced them to sort of get to where you are now?
The biggest challenge, I guess, at the time would be just trying to figure it all out as just 2 young lads with not a lot of experience in business. So our processes were just absolute rubbish in the early days. The smartest thing I ever did was just hiring someone who was much more knowledgeable in these areas at a really early on in the piece, as opposed to us trying to learn it all from scratch and just gambling with the client's money. That would have been a bit reckless. So we just took on someone who knew how to run successful ads and things, and then sort of built our processes based on that. And then gradually over time just kept replicating that model, just finding people that are bloody good at what they do. And then that becomes the SOP of the whole company. And then obviously you're going to iterate it and change it over time and things. But as a starting point, it seems to work quite well.
Mm-hmm.
It was interesting. In the early days, we never really had to struggle to obtain the clients. That was the easy bit. I mean, everyone knew about this Facebook ads thing that was coming. But it was back in the days where you could just call up a massive company and they didn't even have a Facebook page, or they'd not run any Google ads yet. And I'm just like, wow, do you realize that this is a thing and it's possible? There's a few massive businesses around Auckland that we just started up all their first profiles, or built their built their Facebook page, or started their Instagram and all this sort of stuff, just because they didn't have one before. So, I mean, yeah, definitely a lot easier back then than it would be now. But yeah, a lot of challenges. The biggest challenge, though, for me, I think throughout has just been hiring and and HR. Like I said before, it's like the biggest benefit, but it's really bloody hard to get that right. It's very, very challenging. I think any business owner you talk to in Auckland, especially at the moment, would probably share the same sort of feedback. It's very, very hard. I've never been a fan of going through like recruitment agencies and things. I always prefer to do it myself. I think I can be a bit more thorough that way. But I read this book called Who by Jeff Y. I think that's his name. Bloody good read. Highly recommend it to any other business owner. It gives you a framework to follow just to hire A grade employees and contractors and things. Sort of loops back to what I was talking about at the start of the call, where just got to have full clarity. Just really outline exactly the type of person that you want. If you've already got a team, then profiling the perfect example of the employee that you want. Maybe there's someone in your team already that's like that. It's like, okay, why are they such a good employee? How can I duplicate these traits and find someone else that is similar?
So what do you look for in a good like employee or contractor?
I'm real big on hiring the character and then training the skill into them, because skills can be learned, but a person's character, that's who they are. Everyone has different strengths and weaknesses when it comes to that. For example, like there might be someone who's ridiculously stubborn and headstrong and outgoing who'd be great at sales, but probably not so great to be, managing your Google ads or something like this. Be a bit more flexible and listen to the client's needs a bit more and things like that, and not want to back down. So everyone's got different strengths and weaknesses. Whenever I need to hire a new person, I'll just firstly outline what traits the role requires, and then really just go for someone with those soft traits. Doesn't matter about the skill set most of the time anyway. Sometimes you just need to find someone who's an expert in the field, but we've got a pretty bloody good team of people that have the specific skills that we need. Our most recent hire was an intern, and we just took her on from scratch and just taught her everything that she needed. But the biggest trait there that she had was just a hunger to learn, very willing and eager, which I think is the most important thing, regardless of your age or what role you're going for. Just never assuming that you know everything. There's always something to learn, especially in digital, because the platforms are changing every single month, and you can never know everything in marketing. Like I see a lot of the time people, client side, people trying to hire a digital marketer for their business, and you look at the job description, it's like they're looking for a unicorn, expert graphic designer who's got 3 years experience in like Google ads, 3 years experience in Facebook ads. They've got experience managing 50 grand a month minimum ad spend. They know how to build websites. They are an analytics expert. They're a pro copywriter. It's like, good luck. There's a reason why people specialize. It's kind of like trying to find a builder who's also an expert plumber and also a master electrician. It's just like they don't exist. It's because if they did exist, they're probably going to be really average at all of those things. You want to find someone who's really bloody good at one thing, but also has like a base knowledge of a whole bunch of things. It's like that whole T-shape, entry-level skills, but then a really depth of knowledge in one, maybe two areas.
Yeah, it's so interesting with a lot of these job descriptions. Like I was just having a look at one on LinkedIn earlier on, and it just sort of came up. It's just like, looking for like a marketing person. And I was just like, oh yeah, I wonder what that sort of pay scale would be. And it's just like, it's nowhere near what that person would actually be entitled to earn with a skill set that they have. And I think that's the common trap that a lot of New Zealand companies fall into. That I think in America and Australia, uh, they're a bit more, I guess, wise in paying people what they're worth, and that's probably why a lot of Kiwis get poached by these companies, is because they're prepared to invest a lot into them and also prepared to remunerate them very handsomely.
Yeah.
And so much like the biggest loss that a lot of companies have is losing a high quality person on the basis that they're not prepared to pay more. And look, sometimes you just can't match the pay that some of these other companies have. That's like a reality. But if you prepared to pay a little bit more to keep a good person, then that person very often will take your business and your company a lot further than if you had
Yep.
to start the hiring process all over again. And a lot of that work which that person had kind of falls onto your shoulders and the other team's shoulders, and it leads to stress and burnout, which kind of brings me to the next thing. You never look tired. Every time I talk to you, you always look fresh and up and ready and alert. Do you like drink a lot of coffee, or do you just sort of, are you always just creating energy as a person? Even like being a parent and running a business, and having a wedding to plan as well. Like, how do you sort of, yeah, how do you manage all that without sort of feeling like exhausted?
Yeah, man, good question. I think probably a bit of an unpopular opinion, but personally, I believe that stress is a choice and you can just choose not to be stressed. Personally, I think a lot of people would disagree with that statement, but for me anyway, if I feel myself starting to be stressed out, then maybe I've just got some mechanisms that I use. I meditate a lot and things like that, but I just really believe that you can just choose not to be stressed. And if you're in a situation where you are just uncontrollably stressed out and there's nothing you can do about it, then your system is broken and you need to fix that. There's probably something really wrong with the way you've set your life up, especially if it's prolonged. And, if you're feeling that level of stress for longer than like a few weeks or something, like change that. For me, though, personally, like I say, I'm very routine oriented, very goal oriented. Most mornings I'll follow a very strict structure, and personally, I think if you master your morning, then your whole day is set up. I start at the night prior, like the night before. I'll plan my next day out. I'll get all of the standard, I'll like plan my morning up, make my lunch, do all that sort of stuff the day prior, because like evening hours are less valuable than morning hours. Morning hours are way more valuable to me, because it's like you don't want to be in a mad, flustered rush in the morning. If you start your day off smooth, then the rest of it's going to be pretty smooth sailing. That also, I think, I don't know, luckily I can operate on not a heck of a lot of sleep a lot of the time. Yeah, as long as I get at least like 4 or 5 hours, I'm generally okay. Anything less than 4 hours and I'm a bit of a zombie, so I just don't do that anymore. Yeah. So yeah, I think just each person's a bit different, and yeah, you just need to have some sort of system or mechanism set up where you're not stressing yourself out. Also, I think every person just has a different threshold as to how much, like how, like what a comfortable stress level would be for them. Some people can just hack more stress than others, and I think if you're one of those people, then it's like almost you don't want to waste that. Like put it into something. I see a lot of people that can deal with a lot of stress, and they're especially the ones that get kind of comfortable or become financially free or do something like that. It's just like I'm just gonna chill out now. It's like no, I mean just because you don't have to work doesn't mean that you shouldn't. Like just work on something fun or like something that's going to have a real positive end result. You know what I mean? Yeah. So yeah, I think just having a system in place, deciding not to be too stressed out, and if you are too stressed out, then doing something about it and having a system that works better for you.
Okay, cool. We'll actually just wrap it up there. Dave, thanks so much. And if people want to find out more about working with Flow, where can they go?
Flow.co.nz. Hit us up. We do lead generation marketing. Got a lot of clients in the education sector. Pretty much anything to do with online web, generating more leads. We've got you sorted. Flow.co.nz.